everyone. So this week we're going to take some more time on graphing quadratics. So I know last week I gave you guys those initial notes on how to graph a quadratic. I want to spend another week on it because I know it's tricky. You guys probably have a lot of questions, and I think hopefully if we can spend another week on it, you guys will feel a little bit more confident. There's no need to be rushing through anything right now. So we're going to spend another week on graphing quadratics. That being said, I know that currently about 10 of you guys have turned in your quiz for this week. So for those of you that have taken the quiz, thank you. The way that this week is going to work coming up, I'm going to post another graphing quadratics quiz that looks really similar to this last week's. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to score both, and I'm going to give you the higher score. So let's say you get a 3 on one and a 4 on the other one. You'll get a 4 on this quiz. Mostly I just want to give you guys some more time and more practice with everything. So today's notes should not be new material. I'm just going to go through some examples and talk you through where I've seen a lot of misconceptions and had a lot of questions from people. So hopefully this video will be helpful in clearing up any questions you guys have. So this is 10.1 Graphing Quadratics Part 2, so we're going to do this for our second week. So let's try labeling some quadratics. So this was a level 2 question on this last week's quiz. First of all, my printer is like kind of broken. Like I can only print in blue. And so the graphs were red and they didn't print. So I tried to sketch them in, and I won't lie, I didn't do a very good job. So that's cool. But hopefully your guys' looks better, or at least you can look at one. Like you can look at my PDF while you're watching this or something. So it's asking us to draw the axis of symmetry. So remember, axis of symmetry is a line through which your parabola is mirrored. And that always passes through the vertex. So don't forget your line of symmetry, your axis of symmetry. This passes through the vertex. And it cuts your parabola in half. And then label the following components of the quadratic as coordinate points. So, your axis of symmetry, well, here's your vertex. Your axis of symmetry passes through your vertex and cuts your parabola in half. Now, again, the axis of symmetry isn't something that the online homework lets you do, which is not awesome, but, I'm trying to do my best and working with a website that is really versatile, but it doesn't have everything that I would hope for. So this is our axis of symmetry. And this is the line x equals -1 because it's passing through the x value, -1. Up next, hopefully you guys recognize that this is your vertex. And the coordinate point, well, how do we get here? We always start at 0, 0. We go left 1, so -1, and then up 1, 2, 3. -1, 3. That's where our vertex is located. Your y-intercept, oh, I'm not really going in the right order. I like to do vertex first. Your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. My sketch is not awesome. It's supposed to be here at 5. So your y-intercept is where you cross the y-axis. And I always try to make sure I find graphs that have the y-axis labeled. So if you're starting with the y-intercept, here's the y-axis. Where is it crossing? At 5. Remember, it's a coordinate point. To get to that point, you go left or right 0 distance, and then up 5. And then the reflected y-intercept point is how you graph, like for your quiz. If you've been using WAMAP, if you just plot these 2 points, it'll make the rest of the shape for you, which honestly is actually a pretty cool way to graph for an online platform. But for your quiz, you guys, a lot of times you get here and you have these 2 dots. Okay, well, now what? You have to mirror across the axis of symmetry. So here's the axis of symmetry. It's 1 away to the right. So we're going to go 1 away to the left over here. So this is my reflected y-intercept. And that's at the coordinate. We go left 2, up 5. So if you guys want to pause and try the second one, if you have a note sheet, go for it. So the axis of symmetry where it's mirrored through, so axis of symmetry, I'm going to abbreviate symmetry. This is the line x equals 2. It's a vertical line x equals 2. Passes through the x value 2. And then I'm going to label the vertex next. So the vertex, the axis of symmetry passes through the vertex. That's why using the axis of symmetry formula tells you the x coordinate of our vertex. So as we can see, our vertex is we go right 2, up 1. 2, 1. That's our vertex. So I want you guys to draw this parallel between axis of symmetry and the first part of your vertex. So that's how we find the first part of our vertex, is we use that axis of symmetry line. Your vertex and your axis of symmetry are always going to lie on the same x value. We just need to plug back in to get the y value to figure out where on this axis of symmetry does the vertex live. Y-intercept, here's the y-axis, go all the way down. It's supposed to be here at -7. So my y-intercept for this graph, remember you go left or right, 0 distance, and down 7. And then, so reflect on, here's the axis of symmetry. My distance to that point is 2. So then to mirror it, start here, go 1, 2. This is my reflected y-intercept. And it's at the coordinate, let's see, how do we get to this point? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's at 4, -7. So this is how to interpret those level 2 questions. So just reflecting on graphing again. Here's an example of a quadratic. Remember, even before I do step 1, the first thing I do is I label the a, b, and c values. A is -2, b is -8, c is -6. You notice everything is negative, so don't drop any negatives. And I've labeled the steps here for you guys again. So step 1 is find axis of symmetry using x equals -b over 2a. So remember, this your vertex is going to pass through this, so that's why it gives you the x value of vertex. So let's plug in x equals, remember the negative is part of the formula, always write the negative. And then to plug in b, we're going to set up some parentheses. And then we plug the b value in, which is -8. Over 2, and then we need to plug something for a, so parentheses, -2. So I think that starting here, I think you guys can plug in. I think that our math errors are starting here. So if you need to use Scientific Desmos or something, go to Desmos Scientific and just type this in. But remember, we're going to simplify. I'm going to start by just simplifying the top, and then I'm going to simplify the bottom. So I'm going to start by just simplifying -8. Okay, negative and a negative makes a positive, so it's just 8. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to simplify the bottom. 2 times -2 makes -4. And then 8 divided by -4 is -2. All right, so we just found the axis of symmetry. So the line of axis of symmetry is x equals -2, but it's also the x value of your vertex. So I'm going to come over here. I know my vertex is -2 something. I don't know what. So I'm going to come over here to my graph, and I'm going to draw on my dotted line at -2. There's -2. 1, 2, 3. So here's my axis of symmetry line, x equals -2. I know that my parabola is going to be mirrored around this line. And I know my vertex is going to live somewhere on this line. I just need to solve where exactly it lives. And to do that, you plug the x value back into your original quadratic to get the output. So I think this is the step also where we need to be careful. So y equals, we've got -2. So we're going to write everything down that we see, but every time there's an x, you're going to replace it with parentheses and plug -2 in. So -2, well, we got an x now, parentheses, squared. What are we putting in parentheses? Well, what's x? -2. Okay, let's keep going. -8 x. So I'm going to set up some parentheses, and we're plugging -2 in for x. -6. So this is the step that if you guys need to, just go straight to Desmos Scientific and type the whole thing in. Literally type this whole thing in. I'm not testing you guys on your ability to simplify correctly or, do the math in your head or whatever. So if you're struggling with getting the right answer in this step, literally go to Desmos and type this exact thing in with the parentheses and the negatives in the right spot, the squared, everything. I'm going to do it by hand. So order operations says to do parentheses first, but there's nothing inside parentheses to simplify. So next up is exponents. Aha. So this, what's being squared is what's directly in front of it. So negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. So I have negative 2 times 4. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16 minus 6. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 plus 16 minus 6. 16 minus 8 is 8, minus 6 is 2. So this simplifies down to 2. So my vertex is negative 2, 2. So I'm going to go over here and plot negative 2, 2. And then next up, plot the y-intercept and mirror it over the axis of symmetry. So remember the y-intercept is the c value. 0, comma c value. So our c value is negative 6. So our y-intercept is 0 and negative 6. So I'm going to go over here. This is your y-axis. So put a dot on negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, to finish graphing, right, you mirror it. You went to the right 2. So now you're going to go to the left 2. Dot. Ta-da. That's it. There's your parabola. And remember, how could we tell that it's going to be facing down? Your a value is negative. Not that it matters, like, but that's a good way to check yourself. Like your parabola is opening downward. Should it be opening downward? Yeah, your a value is negative. All right. And there's a couple examples on the back. Oh, my pen bled through. There's a couple examples on the back for you guys to try. So this is where I would suggest if you're struggling, please pause your video here and try these two. And then I'm going to go through them, and hopefully you guys will be successful or even more successful on this week's quiz. All right. So hopefully you paused. So I'm going to go over this first one. So first step, careful here with your a value. It just says negative x squared. So what's your a value? Well, technically there's a number chilling out front, right? It's not just 1, it's not negative x, it's if there's a negative and no number, it's negative 1. B is 2, C is negative 3. All right, so step 1 is axis of symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. So it means x equals, remember negative is part of the formula, write it down first every time. Put some parentheses there for b. B is 2 over 2, part of the formula, write it down, parentheses for a, negative 1. And then remember, you're just going to simplify the top, negative, and then a 2 is just negative 2. And the bottom, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 over negative 2 is 1. So our axis of symmetry is 1. So I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to start already. I'm going to put my dotted line through x equals 1. There's x equals 1. This is my axis of symmetry. All right. This is also the first part of my vertex. So step 2, vertex, buddy. So I know it's going to be 1 something, but this is where I have to plug 1 in to figure out where exactly on this axis of symmetry line does my vertex live. So everywhere that there's an x in my original quadratic, I'm going to put some parentheses and plug a 1 in. So negative is part of the formula, then x squared plus 2 times 1 minus 3. Remember, this is tricky right here. It's not negative 1 squared. The squared only goes to what's in parentheses, and what's in parentheses is the 1. There's technically a negative 1 chilling out front multiplying, right? So 1 squared is 1, negative 1 times 1 is what you get left over. 2 times 1 is 2 minus 3. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1 plus 2 minus 3. So 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So this lives at 1, negative 2. So I'm going to go plot that. 1, negative 2. There's my vertex. And then step 3 is your y-intercept, which remember it's a 0, comma the c value. My c value is negative 3. So it lives at 0, negative 3. And then your last step to make a parabola, you mirror your y-intercept point. So it goes 1 to the left, so I'm going to go 1 to the right, put a dot there. Remember, it should make a U shape. Do your best to make a U shape. It's a parabola shape. And that's it. All right, the last example. So remember, first step, label A, B, and C. A is 2, B is negative 8, C is 5. So step 1, you do your axis symmetry. X equals negative B over 2A. So X equals, so write the negative down, that's part of the formula. Put some parentheses for B. B, plug in negative 8. Over 2, write down the 2, it's part of the formula. Parentheses for A is 2. So simplify at the top. Negative 8 makes positive 8. And then the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my axis of symmetry line is 2. So I'm going to come down here and draw on an axis of symmetry line through x equals 2. So here's 2. So x equals 2, this is my axis of symmetry. I know my vertex is going to live somewhere on this line. I just have to figure out where. So my vertex is step 2. My vertex is 2 something. So we got to plug in to find that something. So we're going to replace x with 2. So 2 parentheses 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 5. Again, go to Desmos. Type this whole thing in. You'll get the answer. I'm going to do it by hand. 2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 minus 16 plus 5. Okay, well 2 times 4 is 8 minus 16 plus 5. So 8 minus 16 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3. So my vertex is at 2, negative 3. I'm going to plot my vertex. 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, and then step 3, your y-intercept, 0, comma, your c value. C value is 5, so it's at 0, comma 5. This is a steep parabola, friend. And then your last step, to make the parabola shape, we went 2 to the left, so we're going to go 2 to the right and mirror it. I'm not doing a good job squinting. Ta-da! All right, so hopefully we're getting the hang of everything. Like I said, you guys, when you go to plug in, just type this whole thing into Desmos Scientific. Because if you're not getting these right, I'm not testing you on your ability to simplify these. I really just want you guys to get the right numbers so that you can practice graphing. Because remember, the standard that I'm grading right now, what I'm really trying to measure is your ability to plot points on a graph correctly. So don't be afraid, just go to Desmos, even just check your answer, so that way your quiz is correct. All right, guys, so once again, just to remind you, this week's quiz is going to look very similar to last week's. Please take that one, and I'm going to take your better score of the 2. Like I said, I just wanted to practice graphing again before I move on. I know this stuff can be tricky, so I want to make sure that we're all comfortable. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks.